If this wage announcement was supposed to be a feel-good element of the budget, at this pub in Hampton, they're certainly not feeling it.
The wage is going up and up every year. When the sales are going down and costs are going up, we can't cope. Businesses are collapsing.
So will that make you less likely to employ people?
Yes, yeah, we're working on a skeleton crew because the cost of employing people is just so high.
I know that the cost of living is still the #1 issue for working people.
Along with an expected freeze on fuel duty and likely cuts to energy bills, the minimum wage increases are supposed to help with the cost of living, as the Chancellor stressed in this promotional video. But coming after the national insurance increases in the last budget...
Aren't you just hitting business all over again?
If people are getting up every morning and going to work to do the right thing, that they should be properly rewarded for that. A decent wage is part of that, but so too are measures like freezing prescription charges, freezing rail fares, extra help for childcare.
In the last budget, the national living wage for those 21 and over went up by almost 7%, from £11.44 to £12.41. With this increase of 4.1%, it will reach £12.71. For 18 to 20-year-olds, last year the minimum wage went up massively, from £8.80 to £10. Add to that this further rise of 8.5%, taking it to £10.85, in line with the government's goal to eventually have one standard adult living wage. At a time when youth unemployment is rising, that could be a problem.
We all want higher wages for workers, and we want these boosts to living standards that the minimum wage can create. But there's a real risk here that big rises in the minimum wage put businesses off hiring and end up reducing employment among young people at a time when the labour market is already slowing down.
Back at the pub, even their 20-year-old chef, who would benefit from the wage hike, had reservations.
They're just trying to make people happy. In the meantime, we're doing this for you, we're doing that for you. Give it a year. It wasn't actually a good thing to do.
The Chancellor will be hoping the totality of her much-leaked, much-tweaked budget goes down better than that tomorrow. Posing oh so naturally with the Prime Minister today, the budget has the potential to seal both of their fates. Romilly Weeks, News at 10.
Well, the Chancellor has some serious sums to work through tomorrow. She insisted tonight she would not lose control of public finances. But where's she going to get the money from? Carl is here to take us through the numbers. Carl.
Well, after the last budget, the Chancellor went to the CBI conference to talk to the businesses she had just taxed particularly heavily. And this is what she said to them.
I'm really clear. I'm not coming back with more borrowing or more taxes.
Oops. A year on, and we think the Chancellor is looking for around another £40 billion to balance the books. It's a pretty long way from no more to 40 billion more. So what went wrong? Well, back in March, the Office for Budget Responsibility, the OBR, forecast a £10 billion surplus by 2029-2030. But even at the time, this was not thought to be much of a buffer. And then, of course, the government U-turned on two policies expected to save money. The winter fuel payment and the disability benefit changes. Put together, that cost them £7 billion. Tomorrow, though, we'll get a new OBR forecast which is thought to have significantly downgraded future economic performance, knocking things off course by another £21 billion or so. The Chancellor, of course, also needs to re-establish her buffer. This time she's thought to be looking for an additional £10 billion to get her to £20 billion of headroom overall. And it's widely expected Rachel Reeves will also remove the two-child benefit cap at the cost of roundabout £3 billion, taking us to around about that 40 billion that we think she needs to find. So how is she going to fund all of this? Well, the good news is that the OBR have already forecast a higher tax take from existing taxes worth around 10 billion extra. That may have saved us from the income tax rise the Chancellor seemed to have been softening us up for a few weeks ago. After that, we're expecting a smorgasbord, they say, of smaller tax rises. The biggest plate at that buffet is a 2-year extension to the freeze on income tax thresholds, a so-called stealth tax, which could also bring in about £10 billion, but doesn't start until 2028. Then there are loads of smaller measures. We are expecting a mansion tax, an electric car tax, a gambling tax, pension reform changes, and changes to limited liability partnerships altogether. And if those things work as hoped, they could raise around another £9 billion. Of course, there are also the traditional sin taxes on alcohol and tobacco and the extension of the sugar tax to milkshakes too. All of that, though, doesn't quite get us all the way to £40 billion. We'll find out tomorrow if that is what the Chancellor needs and how she gets there. And most importantly, Gamal, how the markets think about the credibility of her plans.
OK, Carl, many thanks indeed. And Robert is here in the studio with me. A lot at stake tomorrow, Robert, not just politically for the government, but for people's personal finances too.
Yeah, totally. And I can probably take us up to the 40 billion that Carl couldn't quite get us to, because there's also going to be something which actually markets don't have a lot of faith in, which is she will say she's cracking down on tax avoidance to the tune of many billions of pounds. And historically, chancellors have made those claims, thought that the tax inspector would find the money. And then, frankly, it hasn't turned out as they'd wanted. So bond markets will be encouraged by the fact that the so-called headroom is being doubled, but they will be anxious, as I say, about the fact that some of these tax rises may not look that credible. And the vast majority of the tax rises, whether it is new taxes on electric vehicles, whether it is this freeze on allowances, whether it's this new higher tax on homes worth more than £2 million, none of that will come in until 2028, and there will just be a concern that a weak government in the run-up to the election may not actually deliver those tax rises. If the government is as good as its word, though, and they do come in, if you're a worker, if you're a pensioner, if you're a business, because there are some pension tax changes that are going to hit business costs, all of these things are going to hit, millions and millions of businesses and individuals. So it will feel quite painful. Now, she's promising to cut the cost of living. And one of the things she's going to do, for example, is take some of those climate change costs off our bills and shove them into general expenditure, general taxation. So it won't all be bad news. And certainly if you're on, low income in a family, this £3.5 billion abolition of the two-child limit on universal credit will feel like very good news. But in the round, I think very few people are going to come out of tomorrow, thinking, yippee, we're off to the races. They may feel, my goodness, it could have been worse.
Yeah, as we say, a lot at stake. Robert, many thanks indeed.